Yes, we are back again. Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, and I really just hope that's enough. Don't miss the return of the Sometime Show this Sunday with a special episode, and then new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday thereafter. Now, I was originally going to do this episode as one long thing. However, the scripts began to get kind of long, and I realized it would be better to just break this down. So this episode is going to be a summary of all the current legal battles Donald Trump is involved in, where the next episode will be my opinion on where things are going, and a little spoiler alert there. For the first time, I actually feel pretty confident that Donald Trump is going down. That part 2 will also include some of the recent developments, like the trouble he's getting himself into by defying court orders, as well as his collective meltdowns over the fact that things are not really going his way. This episode will focus on trying to be much more informational, though it is me. Let's remember that, so expect a little cheeky interjection from time to time. But let's get started by getting you caught up with where things are at right now. And I'm going to begin with what is probably the least consequential cases up through the ones which he faces as the largest threats to him as a person, a candidate, a businessman, and potentially now a criminal. And just one more little bit of reminder here. This is Donald Trump that we're talking about. This is not some normal candidate. So, as we begin with the least consequential case, I want us to keep in mind that this case by itself would have ended the political aspirations of almost anybody else. Literally anyone else you could conceive up to this point, anyway. So we will begin with the allegations and criminal charges from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg relating to Trump paying hush money to the porn star known as Stormy Daniels. This case began on March 25th, meaning it will possibly overlap with other cases going on. But at this point, he has so many, Donald Trump does, that might just be unavoidable. And while it is the least consequential, in my opinion, it still does come with a very large number of indictments. It was almost like Bragg was going for a high score, a total of 34 indictments in this case. Now, when Republicans talk about this, they're generally going to try to make it seem like this is a case of just whether or not he cheated on his wife and slept with an adult film star. However, that is not at all what is alleged to be the things he actually did wrong, because those would be more things that are like moral judgments, not legal ones. He is in fact accused of what essentially sounds a lot like fraud, because it is. Cooking the books, moving around money in such a way that the hush money payments would not come to light until after the election. The hush money payments paid to porn star Stormy Daniels. This also having implications on trying to tamper with election information as well as potentially campaign funding. However, at present, they are just focusing on the falsified business records and the payments made. Now, the next legal case you may not have even heard of, as Trump is not technically an official defendant in the case itself, and there's a possibility that while I am currently ranking it as the second most inconsequential, were it to succeed, the next case actually has the potential to become the most consequential, as other states would certainly follow suit. And I am talking about a Colorado case. That's just the Colorado state capital. There wasn't a good real person to put in its place. Anyway, the Colorado case, which is evaluating whether or not under the 14th Amendment, Donald Trump is disqualified from being on the ballot in 2024. So this is how it works. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment reads as such. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So there's obviously a lot of other words in there that we don't need. Basically, in the case of Trump, according to the 14th Amendment, you cannot run for president and become elected president if you have either committed insurrection or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. And specifically, if you have already in the past sworn an oath to the Constitution. So in this case, because he was president before. It's funny because this wouldn't necessarily disqualify him from running the first time. However, after taking the oath, it would. Now, it is worth noting that while I don't think that this is the most consequential, not yet, and that this, I guess why I don't think it's the most consequential is that most legal scholars do not currently hold consensus that this would actually apply to Donald Trump. Obviously, to a layperson such as myself, it does seem pretty clear-cut, and I'm not quite sure what they're on about because, it seems like he's disqualified in multiple ways, but I am not a legal scholar, so legitimately, I guess my opinion doesn't matter. The hearing is proceeding soon, and I don't know if this means anything that we should put any hope in, but Trump's team has on multiple occasions actually tried to get it thrown out, and those attempts have been rejected. But that can legitimately just mean the hearing is allowed to happen. People are allowed to raise this objection, even if it is destined for failure. That could be the case. Oh, my pet Trump pig is still in frame. He's still sleeping since the last one. We'll just yoink. I'm down on the ground. How could you do this to me? Even if it was agreed upon that this could apply to Trump, it would also have to be established how the disability would be applied. And I'm using that term because that's the term used in the amendment further on. And right now, the only guidance offered by the amendment is how to remove the disability, basically a 2/3 vote. It does not clarify how to apply it, only how to remove it. So they must decide if it is a self-executing thing, and then the country would also have to decide whether or not they are comfortable with something like that being considered self-executing. How might that be applied in the future? How might states abuse that in the future? However, were it to succeed, Donald Trump would not be on the ballot in Colorado, and presumably several states would follow suit, and he would be considered disqualified from becoming president. However, if this only happens on a state level and the states that subsequently implemented it were only states which he was not likely to win anyway, it might not actually affect his chances of victory, especially if they then had to take that case to the Supreme Court that he was disqualified. So that's why I don't know if this one will be super consequential or not. Right now, it looks not great, but if it succeeded, it would be huge. Huge. It would be absolutely, completely huge. The biggest thing that ever happened in this country. And we are not people who like this country. That's Donald Trump. I don't even know where I was going with that then. So let's go on to the next more consequential case, which also has the potential to move around in the future. And notably is, it's actually already issuing some consequences, which is pretty exciting. We'll talk about more of that in part 2, though. I am now referring to the civil case of alleging fraud from Donald Trump and his businesses in New York, brought by Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. In this case, the judge has actually already ruled that the court claim is true. And that was my phone. I'm sorry if you heard that. And they have suspended Trump's business licenses in the state, which at the conclusion of this trial may become a permanent suspension. And the phone goes off. Yes, his business licenses have already been suspended and are at risk for permanent suspension. On top of a permanent prohibition of doing business in the state of New York, Letitia James is also seeking some $250 million of fines against the Trump organization. So part of why it is hard to decide if this is more or less consequential is we're talking about a civil trial. And while there aren't any real threats of Donald Trump going to jail over this, with perhaps the only exception being the contempt-related charges, as he seems incapable of cooperating peacefully and respecting gag orders, this still is affecting his bottom line in a very real way and will cost him a tremendous amount of money. Basically, I'm saying it actually goes after the one thing he actually cares about, because it ain't Eric. Next, in order of what I find the most consequential, we'll look at the federal case brought by special counsel Jack Smith, of which there are actually 2. First, there we go. First, the case regarding the classified documents which Donald Trump took from the White House without declassifying and then recklessly stored and shared with people after leaving office. Allegations include claims that Donald Trump resisted and defied subpoenas to return the classified documents, and that some of these documents included extremely sensitive materials involving our nuclear program Now, wait a second. Wasn't there one with, this is the one with the Florida. There's Florida on his face. You've got some Florida on your face. It looks like it's threatening Jack Smith, that Florida. But that's Florida. It's not what it... Boy, this photo is worse than I realized. I did not realize until this very moment how much Florida looks like a gun. It's even got a hammer. Anyway, sensitive materials involving our nuclear program, as well as potential defensive weaknesses for the United States. Essentially, Donald Trump's recklessness was a real and present danger to the United States' national security. And since the indictments were issued, there's actually been 3 new ones added, alleging that Donald Trump and 2 employees attempted to delete security footage that may incriminate them. And this case is going to begin in May of 2024. We'll talk about that, as well as the potentially compromised judge in that case, again, more in part 2. However, before that case, specifically in March, take the Florida away, on the 4th, March 4th, a day before my birthday. What a present. For real, actually. That's a pretty great present. Jack Smith will also see Trump in court over allegations that Trump attempted to defraud the United States, obstruct official government proceedings, and deprive people of civil rights. This is the trial having to do with January 6th and the surrounding events in which Donald Trump is alleged to have tried to overturn the election despite knowing he had experienced a legitimate loss. This case also includes a gag order, which Donald Trump is trying to tempt, is towing the line of, and has already caused Jack Smith to request the judge take it seriously and imprison him if necessary. And finally, what I believe will be the most important case, mostly because it is also uncovering information that is useful to some of the others, and because it is coming with a threat of very real criminal consequences and is notably a state case, therefore pardon-proof from the president, however, not the governor. I am talking about I think I'm going to have to move twice, right? Because we're going to go then boom, back to, this is Georgia, just one state away. It touches. I am talking about the Georgia criminal inquiry and 41-count indictment brought by the district attorney of Fulton County, accusing Donald Trump and a larger criminal outfit of trying to interfere with the results of the 2020 election in Georgia. He and several others have been charged with it, by the way, including Rudy Giuliani. And actually, okay, so it's Rudy Giuliani and other names you will recognize that we'll talk more about in part 2. And basically talking about the legal and public, shall we call them, shenanigans, trying to steal the election and overturn the results, specifically in Georgia, but with the implication of what they were doing nationwide. And this case has had the most significant publicly known developments that I'm going to be talking about a lot in part 2, but include many significant names, including the 3rd indicted, the 3rd co-conspirator, many significant names taking plea deals, which is just so exciting and promises to be very interesting, because these plea deals actually include a commitment to be a witness for the prosecution. And look, I'm not kidding. When I say significant names, I mean significant names. Basically, as significant as they could get without being Rudy Giuliani. And I doubt Rudy Giuliani's getting a plea deal. I don't know if he would allow such a thing. To me, I think that his pride would prevent him from doing so. But even if it could happen, I don't know if, from the perspective of Georgia, you want Rudy Giuliani any less than you want Trump. I kind of think it might be a bit of a package deal, and they want both. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe he gets a plea deal. I hope he doesn't. Like, seriously, fuck that guy. But for the moment, these are the legal challenges facing Donald Trump and the things which may finally bear some consequential fruits to a man who is so obviously corrupt to the point that he flaunts and brags that he is corrupt. Frankly, I could shoot somebody right on the street, and I plan to. Come on down, watch me murder somebody and not lose any votes this Friday. In part 2, I will share, as I said, my feelings about the cases, as well as make some predictions regarding whether I think he's going to be found guilty, and talk about the possibilities of him being, say, pardoned by himself or a different president, including the one we got now. So do check that out. And don't forget to watch the premiere of the Sometimes Show this Sunday evening, with new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, which follow. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing and hitting the like button. I will see you on the next one. I'm Jimmy Snow. This exists now. Fade to black. For now. I think I have to make that happen. Fade to black. There will be that won't, when the final show, fade to black.